Before we begin, let us know where you're listening from. After the story, rate it from 1 to 10. Now let's start. The blizzard howled like a pack of wolves, driving snow and ice across the harsh Northumbrian coastline. Ragnar Ankarsson stood at the prow of his longship, the Jormungandr's Fong, his knuckles white against the carved dragon head as the vessel fought against the churning sea. His men had wanted to turn back when the storm clouds gathered, but Ragnar had pushed forward. The Jarls back home would not accept empty hands after a raid. Odin tests us, he bellowed over the wind, his red beard crusted with ice and salt. And we will not be found wanting. The 20 warriors at his back roared in agreement, though their voices were swallowed by the tempest. These were men who had followed Ragnar since they were boys learning to wield their first axes. They trusted him, even when the gods themselves seemed determined to sink them to the bottom of the sea. Njal, his oldest friend and trusted second, pushed his way forward to stand beside him. The shore, Ragnar. We must make for it, or we'll all feast in Valhalla before morning. Ragnar nodded grimly. Better to find shelter and resume their raid when the storm passed. He barked commands, and skilled hands adjusted the sail, turning the serpent ship toward the shadowy outline of the Northumbrian coast. As they drew closer, the wind carried something unexpected across the water, a woman's scream, high and desperate against the storm's wrath. Did you hear that? Ragnar asked, squinting through the blinding snow. Njal frowned. Hear what? The wind plays tricks, my friend. But there it was again, unmistakable now. A human cry for help. There's someone on the shore, Ragnar said, pointing to a small figure stumbling along the rocky beach. Bring us in closer. The longship ground against the pebbled shore, and Ragnar leapt into the freezing shallows, axe in hand. The men behind him hesitated, but he paid them no mind. Something pulled him forward, a strange sensation he had never felt before, not in all his 30 winters. The figure collapsed just as he reached her. It was indeed a woman, wrapped in a sodden cloak, her face pale as death against the snow. But she was no Saxon peasant. The fine embroidery on her muddied gown and the silver cross at her throat marked her as nobility. Stay back, heathen, she gasped, producing a small knife from within her cloak. Her accent was strange, not Saxon, but something else. Her eyes were the color of summer skies, startling against her dark hair. I mean you no harm, Ragnar said in the broken Saxon he had learned through years of raiding. You'll die in this cold without help. Better to die by the storm than by a Northman's hand. She spat, though her teeth chattered violently, and her fingers were blue with cold. Ragnar sighed and drove his axe into the frozen ground. If I wanted you dead, woman, you would be. The storm will claim you soon enough. Come with me or stay here. Make your choice quickly. Behind him, Njal and 3 others had followed ashore. What have you found, Ragnar? A Saxon witch. I am no Saxon, the woman protested weakly. I am Rhona Ardgal, daughter of King Ardgal of Dalriada. Ragnar's eyebrows rose. Dalriada, the Gaelic kingdom to the north. What was a Celtic princess doing alone on a Northumbrian beach in the middle of a blizzard? A valuable hostage, Njal suggested, grinning through his frost-covered beard. A woman who will die if we leave her, Ragnar countered. Without waiting for her permission, he swept Rhona into his arms. She struggled weakly, but the cold had sapped her strength. Unhand me. Viking, she demanded, though her voice was fading. Save your strength, princess, Ragnar said, carrying her toward the ship. You can curse me when you're warm. Back aboard the Jormungandr's Fong, Ragnar ordered his men to set up camp on the beach, using the longship sail as a shelter against the storm. They built fires from driftwood and what sparse trees they could find, creating a small circle of warmth in the howling chaos of the blizzard. Rhona sat huddled by the largest fire, wrapped in Ragnar's own bearskin cloak. She watched the Vikings warily, her hand never straying far from the small knife hidden in the folds of her dress. They had given her mead to warm her blood, and dried meat to restore her strength, but she trusted their hospitality as much as she would trust a wolf's smile. Why were you alone on this shore, princess? Ragnar asked, sitting across from her. In the firelight, she could see that his eyes were the deep green of pine forests. My escort was attacked by Saxon raiders, she said stiffly. I fled on horseback, but my mount was injured. I've been traveling on foot for 2 days. And what brings a Celtic princess to Saxon lands? These shores are not safe for your kind. Rhona's jaw tightened. I was to be married to Athelred of Bernicia, a political union to secure peace between our kingdoms. Ah, Ragnar nodded, understanding. And now you fear what your fate will be, captured by Norse raiders. I know what Vikings do to women they capture, she said coldly. Ragnar's expression hardened. Not all Norse are the same, princess, just as not all Celts or Saxons are the same. My men will not touch you. And you? She challenged. What do you intend to do with me? That depends, he said thoughtfully. A Celtic princess would indeed fetch a handsome ransom. Or perhaps I should deliver you to your Saxon betrothed after all. At the mention of her intended husband, Rhona's face darkened. I would rather you kill me now. Ragnar studied her curiously. You do not wish for this marriage. My wishes matter little, she said bitterly. I am a daughter of kings, a piece to be moved across the board in their game of alliances. Athelred is a cruel man, 3 times my age, with 2 wives already in their graves. The Viking was silent for a long moment, watching the flames dance between them. Finally, he spoke. Sleep, princess. We will decide your fate when the storm passes. The blizzard raged for 3 days, trapping the Vikings and their reluctant guest on the windswept shore. Unable to continue their raid or return to their ships, they made the best of their situation, hunting what game they could find and sharing stories around the fire at night. Despite her initial fear, Rhona found herself drawn to these strange Northmen. They were not the mindless beasts of the stories told in her father's hall. They were warriors, yes, dangerous and fierce, but also poets and craftsmen, loyal to each other and their gods. On the 3rd night, as the wind finally began to die down, Ragnar found Rhona standing at the edge of their camp, gazing out at the star-filled sky. Your men sing beautifully, she said without turning. I did not expect that of Vikings. We value the skald's art as much as the warriors, Ragnar replied, coming to stand beside her. Our stories and songs will outlive our battles. And what stories do they tell of you, Ragnar Ankarsson? He smiled slightly. That I am stubborn as a frost giant and twice as ugly. Rhona couldn't help but laugh. I think they lie about the latter. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, a spark that neither had anticipated. Rhona looked away first, her cheeks flushing. Tomorrow the seas will be calm enough to sail, Ragnar said softly. I must decide what to do with you. And have you decided? I will take you home, he said. To Dalriada. Rhona turned to him in surprise. Not for ransom? No, he said. Some things are worth more than silver. The journey north was perilous. They sailed up the coast, avoiding Saxon settlements and patrols, navigating treacherous waters with skill born of generations at sea. Rhona watched in fascination as Ragnar commanded his vessel, reading the wind and waves as easily as she might read a manuscript. At night, when they made camp on secluded beaches, Ragnar taught her the names of the Norse gods, and she told him tales of Celtic heroes. They spoke of their childhoods, his in a coastal village in the fjords, hers in the stone fortress of her father's kingdom. 2 worlds so different, yet as they talked, those differences seemed to matter less and less. Why do your people raid our shores? She asked one night as they sat by the fire, the rest of the crew already asleep. Why do your people kill those who wash up on your shores? He countered. Because we fear you. And we raid because our lands are harsh, our winters long, he explained. But also because it is our way. A man gains honor through battle, through the wealth he brings home to his family. Is that why you fight? For honor? Ragnar was quiet for a moment. I fought for honor once. Now, I am not certain what I fight for. Rhona studied his face in the firelight. Perhaps that is why the gods sent the storm. To show you another path. Do you believe your God and mine work together in such ways? She smiled softly. I believe there are mysteries in this world beyond our understanding. Their hands lay close on the log where they sat, not quite touching but aware of each other's warmth. Slowly, Ragnar's fingers moved to cover hers. Rhona did not pull away. As they sailed farther north, the tension between them grew. Ragnar's men noticed the lingering glances, the private conversations, the way their jarl sought out the Celtic princess's company. Njal finally confronted his friend as they prepared to make camp one evening. The men talk, Ragnar, he warned. They say you are bewitched by this foreign woman. Let them talk. Ragnar replied, securing the ship's mooring. She is promised to another. She is a Christian, a Celt, our enemy. She is not my enemy, Ragnar said firmly. Njal gripped his shoulder. What would your father say? The man who died fighting her people. Ragnar's face hardened. My father is in Valhalla. I answer to myself now. That night, Ragnar and Rhona walked along the moonlit shore, away from the curious eyes of the crew. We will reach Dal Riata in 2 days' time, he said. Your father's fortress lies just up the river from the western shore. Rhona nodded, her heart heavy with a sadness she hadn't expected. And then you will return to your home. Yes. To raid again? To kill more of my people. Ragnar stopped walking. Is that what you think of me still? After all these days? I don't know what to think, she admitted. I know only that when we reach my father's lands, he will want to kill you, and when you return to yours, your people will expect you to kill mine. And what do you want, Rhona? She looked up at him, moonlight silvering her dark hair. I want what cannot be. Ragnar stepped closer, his hand gently touching her cheek. Tell me. I want a world where a Viking and a Celtic princess can speak by a fire without bloodshed between their people. I want. Her words were cut short as Ragnar's lips found hers. The kiss was gentle at first, then fierce with the passion of all they had held back. When they finally parted, both were breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. This can only end in sorrow, Rhona whispered. Then let us find what joy we can before that end, Ragnar replied. They made camp on a hidden cove that night, and as the stars wheeled overhead, they lay together on Ragnar's cloak, exploring each other with wonder and tenderness. Their bodies spoke what their words could not, of longing, of connection that transcended the blood-soaked history between their peoples. In the quiet aftermath, as Rhona rested her head on Ragnar's chest, she traced the scars that marked his skin. This one, she asked, touching a long gash across his ribs. A Saxon spear, 3 summers ago, he said. Her fingers found another, near his heart. And this? A Celtic sword. Perhaps wielded by a kinsman of yours. Rhona closed her eyes. How can this be? That I could love a man whose blood is mingled with my people's. Ragnar's arm tightened around her. The gods have strange designs, princess. Perhaps they tire of watching us kill each other. As dawn broke, reality intruded on their brief idyll. They sailed onward, each nautical mile bringing them closer to their inevitable parting. Ragnar grew quiet, his eyes constantly scanning the horizon, as if looking for an escape that did not exist. On the morning they were to reach Dal Riata, Njal approached Ragnar at the ship's prow. There are sails behind us, he said quietly. Saxon, they've been following since daybreak. Ragnar frowned. How many? 3 ships. War vessels. Athelred, Rhona said, coming to stand beside them. He must have learned of my escape and followed. We can outrun them, Ragnar said confidently. Rhona shook her head. Not if we continue to Dal Riata. The currents near my home are treacherous for those who don't know them. The Saxons will catch us before we reach safety. Then we fight, Njal declared. 3 ships against 1. Ragnar scoffed. Even Norse courage has its limits. A plan formed in Rhona's mind. There is a place, a hidden cove my brothers and I discovered as children. The entrance is narrow, visible only to those who know where to look. We could shelter there until the Saxons pass. Ragnar studied her face. You would help us escape your betrothed? I would help us escape, she corrected him. All of us. Under Rhona's guidance, they navigated to a seemingly impassable section of rocky coastline. Only at her insistence did Ragnar steer the longship toward what appeared to be a solid wall of stone. At the last moment, a narrow opening appeared, barely wide enough for the ship to pass. They slipped inside, finding themselves in a sheltered lagoon surrounded by high cliffs. We'll wait here until nightfall, Ragnar decided, then continue north under cover of darkness. As the Vikings secured the ship, Rhona climbed to the top of the cliff to watch for the Saxon vessels. She had been gone only a short time when a cry from above alerted the men. Ragnar looked up to see Rhona being dragged back down the path by 2 Saxon warriors. More Saxons appeared along the cliff edges. They had found the hidden cove after all. At their center stood a heavy-set man in rich clothing, his beard streaked with gray, eyes cold as he surveyed the trapped Vikings below. Athelred, Ragnar growled. recognizing the Saxon lord from raids past. "Release the princess," Athelred called down. "And perhaps I'll grant you a quick death, Northman." Ragnar's men formed a defensive circle, weapons drawn. They were outnumbered, but a cornered Norse warrior was the most dangerous creature in all the northern lands. "Let her go," Ragnar demanded, "and we will leave your shores, never to return." Athelred laughed harshly. "You are in no position to make demands, Viking. The woman is my betrothed, and you are nothing but a thief and a savage." One of the Saxons yanked Rhona forward, his knife at her throat. "Choose quickly, Northman. Surrender or watch her die." "Wait," Rhona cried out. "Lord Athelred, these men saved me when I was lost in the storm. They were returning me to my father's kingdom." "Silence, woman," Athelred snapped. "Your father promised you to me, and you will fulfill that promise." "I will not," Rhona said, her voice carrying clearly across the cove. "I am a princess of Dal Riata, not a piece of property to be traded. I choose my own fate." With a swift movement, she broke free from her captor's grasp and ran down the rocky path toward the shore. The Saxon warriors moved to pursue her, but Athelred held up his hand. "Let her go," he said coldly. "Kill the Vikings. All of them." Arrows rained down from the cliffs as Rhona reached Ragnar's side. The Norse warriors raised their shields, forming a protective wall around their leader and the princess. "We cannot win this fight," Njal said grimly. "We don't need to win," Ragnar replied. "We only need to escape." He turned to Rhona. "Is there another way out of this cove?" She nodded. "A sea cave at the far end. It leads to an inlet north of here, but the passage is treacherous. More treacherous than Saxon arrows," Ragnar asked with a grim smile. They fought their way back to the longship, shields raised against the continuous barrage from above. 3 Vikings fell before they reached the vessel, their bodies committed hastily to the sea with abbreviated prayers to guide them to Valhalla. Rhona guided them to the dark opening of the sea cave, barely visible at water level. The passage was narrow and winding, the ceiling so low in places that the mast nearly scraped against it. They proceeded by or alone, every man straining against the contrary current that sought to dash them against the jagged walls. "If we die here," Njal muttered, "neither your god nor ours will find our bones, princess." "Have faith, friend," she replied, her eyes straining to remember the path from childhood explorations. "The sea gives way to those who respect her power." After what seemed like hours of tense navigation, a glimmer of light appeared ahead. They emerged into open water just as the sun was setting, casting long golden rays across the wave tops. Behind them, the Saxon ships still circled the hidden cove, unaware of their escape. "We've done it," one of the younger warriors shouted. "Not yet," Ragnar cautioned. "We still must get the princess safely to her people." They made landfall that night on a small beach within Dal Riata territory. Celtic sentries would be nearby, Rhona warned, and would attack any Norse ship they spotted. "I will go ahead," she said. "Speak to my father. Explain what you did for me." Ragnar took her hands in his. "And what will you tell him about us?" "The truth," she said simply, "that I love a man my people call enemy. And if he forbids it? If he insists you marry the Saxon lord to keep the alliance?" Rhona's eyes flashed with determination. "I am my father's daughter, but I am also my own woman. I will not be traded for peace that cannot last." Ragnar kissed her then, heedless of his watching men. "Go. We will wait one day. If you do not return." "I will return," she promised. They watched her walk away, a solitary figure climbing the path that led inland toward her father's fortress. Njal came to stand beside his friend. "The men wonder if you've lost your mind," he said quietly. "Loving a Celtic princess, risking our lives for her." "Perhaps I have," Ragnar admitted. "But I have found something worth more than all the silver in England. And if her father sends warriors instead of welcome?" Ragnar's hand rested on his axe. "Then we fight. But I do not think it will come to that." True to her word, Rhona returned the next day, but not alone. With her came a contingent of Celtic warriors led by a stern-faced man with the same blue eyes as the princess. "My brother, Prince Chenid," she introduced him. The Celtic prince regarded the Vikings warily. "My sister tells an incredible tale. That you saved her from the storm, protected her from the Saxon lord, and returned her safely to our lands, asking nothing in return. It is the truth, Ragnar confirmed. She tells another tale as well. Enid continued, his eyes narrowing. One of a Norse raider and a Celtic princess finding love despite the blood between our peoples. The warriors on both sides tensed, hands moving to weapons. That, too, is truth, Ragnar said, standing tall. Enid was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. Our father wishes to meet the man who has stolen his daughter's heart. He has granted you safe passage to our fortress. Leaving most of his men with the ship, Ragnar followed Rhona and her brother inland. The Celtic fortress was built of stone atop a hill, overlooking a vast expanse of forests and rivers. Inside its walls, warriors eyed the Viking with suspicion and hatred, but none dared challenge him under the protection of the royal family. King Ardgal was a giant of a man, his once dark hair now white, but his bearing still proud and fierce. He sat upon a carved throne, studying Ragnar with eyes identical to his daughter's. So, he rumbled, you are the Viking who believes he can take my daughter. I do not take what is not freely given, Ragnar replied. But yes, I love your daughter, and she loves me. Love, the king scoffed. What do Vikings know of love? You know battle and plunder. As do you, King Ardgal, Ragnar countered. Are we so different? We both fight for our people, our beliefs, our gods. Our gods are not the same. Perhaps not, Ragnar conceded. But they created the same stars, the same sea, the same hearts capable of both hatred and love. The king leaned forward. You speak well for a raider. But pretty words do not erase the blood spilled between our peoples. What would you have me do? Bless this union and invite the wrath of every ally we have. The Saxons already march toward our borders, furious that Rhona has rejected their lord. Father, Rhona stepped forward. I have never asked you for anything. I have always been your dutiful daughter. But I ask you now, let me choose my own path. And if I refuse, if I command you to honor the alliance with the Saxons, then you will lose a daughter, she said softly. For I will not marry Athelred, even if you disown me. The hall fell silent. King Ardgal's face darkened with anger, then softened as he looked at his daughter's resolute expression. You have your mother's spirit, he sighed. Turning to Ragnar, he asked, what do you offer my daughter, Viking? A life of raiding? Of bearing children who will be outcasts among both our peoples? I offer her a choice, Ragnar replied. A new beginning. I will not raid Celtic lands again. I will build, not destroy. And perhaps, in time, others will follow our example. The king laughed without humor. You think your love will end generations of bloodshed? One stone can start an avalanche, Rhona said. One ember can light a fire that burns away the darkness. For 3 days, the king deliberated while Ragnar remained as an honored, if closely watched, guest. The Viking observed Celtic customs, learned their songs, and even attended their Christian services, though he did not kneel to their god. In turn, the Celts listened to his tales of the northern lands, of Norse traditions and beliefs. On the 4th day, a Saxon envoy arrived, demanding that King Ardgal honor the marriage agreement or face war. The king called his council, including Ragnar, to debate their response. We cannot defeat the Saxon forces alone, one advisor warned. Our alliance with them has kept peace on our southern borders for a generation. An alliance built on the sacrifice of my daughter, the king said bitterly. Ragnar, who had been silent until now, spoke up. There is another way. My people have no quarrel with the Saxons of Bernicia. They attacked us only because of Rhona. If I were to lead a Norse force to support Dalriada, Athelred would face enemies on 2 fronts. The Celtic advisors looked at him in shock. You would bring Viking raiders to our aid? One asked incredulously. Not raiders, Ragnar corrected. Warriors bound by oath to protect, not plunder. Men who would fight alongside you, not against you. And why would your people agree to this? The king demanded. Because I will give them something more valuable than plunder, Ragnar said. Land. The right to settle peacefully on your northern shores, to farm and trade rather than raid. The council erupted in protests, but King Ardgal raised his hand for silence. An interesting proposal, he said thoughtfully. Vikings who do not raid. Celts who do not fear the dragon ships. A new kind of alliance. A new beginning. Rhona echoed her lover's words. The next morning, King Ardgal summoned Ragnar and Rhona to his private chambers. I have lived long enough to know that the world changes, whether we will it or not, he said wearily. Perhaps it is time for a new path. He turned to Ragnar. Return to your people. Bring those who will pledge peace with Dalriada. We will face the Saxons together. To Rhona, he said more gently, you are indeed your own woman, daughter. Your mother would be proud of your courage. Ragnar sailed back to his homeland with Njal and a small crew, leaving most of his men to guard Rhona. In his father's hall, now ruled by his older brother, he presented his unprecedented proposal, land and peaceful settlement in exchange for military alliance with the Celts. You ask us to abandon our ways, his brother protested, to live alongside Christians who have killed our kin. I ask us to forge new ways, Ragnar countered. To build instead of destroy. To create a place where our children can grow without constant war. Many refused, clinging to the old ways of raiding and plunder. But others, younger warriors tired of bloodshed, families seeking stable lands, craftsmen eager for new markets, agreed to follow Ragnar back to Dalriada. 3 ships became 12, carrying not just warriors but women, children, and the tools of settlement rather than raid. When they returned, the Saxons were already massing on Dalriada's southern border. King Ardgal welcomed the Norse settlers with wary optimism, assigning them lands along the northern coast. Together, they prepared for Ethelred's attack. The battle came with the first thaw of spring. Saxon forces crossed into Celtic territory at dawn, confident in their superior numbers. But they found themselves facing an unprecedented alliance. Celtic spearmen fighting alongside Norse axe-wielders, 2 peoples united against a common enemy. Ragnar and Chynid led the defense, their different fighting styles complementing each other in ways neither had anticipated. By sunset, the Saxon forces retreated, leaving their dead scattered across the bloodied field. In the victory feast that followed, King Ardgal rose to address the improbable gathering of Celts and Vikings. Today marks the beginning of a new chapter in our lands, he proclaimed. Enemies have become allies. Strangers have become neighbors. He gestured to Ragnar and Rhona, who sat side by side at the high table. And 2 hearts have proven that love can indeed bridge the widest divides. Under a canopy of stars, with both Norse and Celtic witnesses, Ragnar and Rhona exchanged vows. His to the old gods, hers to the new, but the promise the same. To honor and protect, to build rather than destroy, to forge a path where none had existed before. The settlement they established became known as Furborg, Peace Fort, a place where Celtic and Norse customs gradually blended, where children grew up speaking both tongues, where the old hatreds slowly faded with each passing generation. And when travelers asked how such a marvel came to be, a place where former enemies lived in harmony, the skalds would tell the tale of a fierce storm, a Viking warrior, and a Celtic princess who heard each other's voices through the howling blizzard and found not just warmth, but a love strong enough to change the course of history.